Hello and welcome. We rely on business science to build successful companies, to make the right calls. But what if the research we trust, the very foundation of our strategy, is a little bit shaky? Well, that exact question is what kicked off a groundbreaking study that put the entire field of strategic management research right under the microscope. Today, we're going to unpack what they found. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at this idea of a credibility crisis in science. Then we'll dive into the evidence in business research, reveal some pretty shocking findings, and then, most importantly, explore why it all matters and what we can do to fix it. Okay, so for years now, there's been this rumbling of doubt growing in the scientific community. In fields like psychology, economics, you name it, researchers have found something really troubling. A lot of famous foundational studies just can't be replicated. This has led to what people are now calling a credibility crisis.
And this brings us to the big question for the business world. The research on strategy guides multi-million-dollar decisions. It shapes entire corporate cultures. If that research is unreliable, the consequences could be absolutely massive.
So a team of researchers led by Donald Berg decided to play detective. They set their sights on the super prestigious Strategic Management Journal. Now, they didn't pick it because it was bad. Quite the opposite. They picked it because it was one of the best. Their thinking was, hey, if a leader in the field has problems, then those problems are probably everywhere. Their whole investigation hinged on this one key concept, reproducibility. Now, this isn't about going out and collecting new data. It's the most basic scientific check there is. It simply asks, if I take the data you published and I run the exact same analysis, do I get the exact same result? Think of it like checking the math on a grocery store receipt. It should be a no-brainer. So the team's approach was super methodical. They targeted that top journal, they focused on two very common types of statistical analysis, and they pulled a sample of 88 different articles from two different eras. Their goal was simple: dig through these papers and find the basic data they needed to rerun the numbers. And with that, their case file was built. So what did they find when they finally opened that case file and started checking the math on 88 published studies? Well, let's just say the results were alarming. Here's the first bombshell. In over 70% of the articles, the researchers couldn't even begin their work. That's right, for 70.5% of the studies, the paper just didn't include enough data to recheck the math. The investigation basically hit a brick wall right out of the gate. This chart really shows you the scale of the problem. You see that huge purple slice? For the vast majority of studies they looked at, the evidence was just missing in action. The original authors hadn't published the basic data needed to verify their own findings. For more than 2/3 of the cases, the trail just went cold. But what about that small fraction, right? That little slice of the pie, just under 30%, that did provide the data. The investigation could finally move forward. So what happened when the team actually got to rerun the numbers? This is where the second shocking finding comes in. Of the studies they could actually test, nearly 1/3 of them failed. Key conclusions that the original papers proudly claimed were supported by the data, well, they actually weren't. The moment the math was redone, the significant results just vanished into thin air. Okay, let's break down what this table means, because it's a big deal. A p-value is a measure of statistical significance. A low value, typically under 0.05, is what researchers look for. It suggests a significant finding. Now look at study 2. The original article reported a nice, significant result. But when our detectives reanalyzed it, the p-value was 0.704, not even remotely close. That's the difference between a valid finding and just statistical noise. And you see that same pattern repeated all the way down the list. So this leaves us in a really tough spot. Most of the studies can't even be checked, and about 1/3 of the ones that can be checked seem to be wrong. The implications here go way beyond the ivory tower. They're serious, and they're far-reaching. The researchers themselves put it pretty starkly. They said, at worst, it means that we as researchers are attempting to build on results that do not accurately and fully represent the underlying data. When we can't trust past studies, the entire structure of our knowledge becomes unstable. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. And you can imagine the ripple effect, right? It's huge. Future research gets built on these potentially faulty foundations. Students in business schools are learning unsound advice, which they then go out and apply as managers and consultants, potentially wasting millions on strategies that are based on little more than statistical mirages. This doesn't just slow down progress, it erodes the credibility of the entire field. A problem this big needs clear solutions, and thankfully, the researchers didn't just point out the problem, they outlined a path forward, a set of reforms designed to restore confidence in the science of business. The solution really boils down to one core principle: radical transparency. This means things like reporting the exact p-values instead of vague thresholds. It means disclosing every methodological decision. It calls for a massive culture shift, a verify, then trust mindset. And it means the journals, the gatekeepers of science, have to step up and make these reproducibility checks a standard part of their review process. Ultimately, we're left with this really essential question. Science is supposed to be cumulative, right? Each discovery builds on the last. But if we can't even verify the building blocks, how can we possibly trust what we're building for the future? It's a fundamental challenge to the entire field to be more open, more transparent, and to make sure the science of strategy is built on a foundation of rock, not sand.